Well, welcome to NetApp's Insight Conference. My name is Kent Christensen. I'm a practice director at Insight, the company. And we want to talk about storage as a service, specifically around Keystone. And with me is Dr. Chris Collins, who kind of leads the NetApp Keystone engineering. Chris, would you mind saying hi to the team?
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
So we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules. Apologize, this is a remote conference this year. We're looking forward to seeing everybody live. We did this last year with Sunitha Rao, who owned the Keystone program, and it was fairly new at the time. And we talked about what the things we're doing. I think we have an opportunity, Chris, with you to talk about how things are going and the growth and how we're executing and helping clients and other people watching the video see what we can do together.
Yeah, we do have quite a few customers already using Keystone with Insight, and so we can really do a good job of giving some practical experience of what's going on.
Awesome. Well, so let's talk about why we're so excited. This is the analyst's take of the market. This happens to be Gartner. We are seeing the absolute same thing. So if we rewind back to 2019, and we'd talked about early versions of on-demand, et cetera, in the past, Gartner came out at the end of 2019 and said, we think it's going to be maybe 15% of the market. Then as we got into 2020 and the last Insight conference, they were saying it might be 20% of the market or 25% of the market. Now, as we go into this year, first half of this year, they said, no, more like 40 to 70% of the market. And so we see a lot of our clients are starting to see this message. And what Gartner said here very succinctly is the CapEx model is not good for anybody. It's the way you kind of only had two choices in the past. You could either buy stuff and put it in your data center, or you could go to the cloud, which was OpEx, but there was the middle ground was undefined. And now with as a service, they're saying, okay, CapEx model is now being seen as a throttle on innovation, and we're seeing just a huge pickup in demand. So is kind of we like to look at it is there's a lot of ways to solve this on going to the cloud. It isn't on the left, far left. It was I either have to buy it, own it, take care of it, manage it, life cycle it, things like that. That's the part that people do not like. There's the public cloud, total OpEx, total flexibility. But it can be expensive and it can be hard for people to understand and get their workloads there, et cetera. So, good for some things, not perfect for everything. And so really what we're seeing is the evolution of the hybrid model and how bringing, I think it was a NetApp term used last year at the conference, we can bring the cloud to you. And that's really what we want to talk to you a little bit about with Keystone. So Chris and I are on almost daily texts and chats and talks about clients, and so he's well aware. But why are clients doing this? Why are the clients that are already using this doing this? And I kind of put them into three buckets. The first one on the left is it could be a financial tool. If you're an airline or a hotel or your business is under stress, and it may be this is a better financial decision to consume it this way, pay for it this way, pay for what I've used this way, versus buying CapEx and taking care of it. So that is actually probably a subset of our clients are thinking that way. The two most common, and we're going to talk jointly about a client today, is a bridge to a cloud strategy. We're going to move X to the cloud over Y amount of time. Nobody really with precision can tell you what X and Y are, but it means I shouldn't be buying 5-year CapEx solutions. And so we'll talk about a client that said, this is the perfect bridge to my cloud strategy. And the other is whenever you're looking at some big end of life cycle, hey, my stuff is due for support, it's end of life, it's old, it's aging. And you say, well, you can consume it this way, pay for what you use. As you use it, it takes risk out of the solution. So whether it's a cloud strategy, a financial solution, or just the ability to make planning more smooth and aligned to your use, it really is taking risk out of it. And I think that dovetails back to what Gartner said is CapEx is really limiting transformation. These are giving you options you didn't have before. So I want to throw a little bit of a congratulations for how NetApp built the program. We're going to talk a little bit about this, but pretty much anybody who wants to sell you anything in a data center is going to say it's service-based pricing. And what we're going to demonstrate here with Chris and NetApp is NetApp did build a service-based level pricing. They've done this in the cloud for years. They can do this as a service model. And many are going to say that, but what you're going to watch them do is configure a bunch of hardware and then come up with a price. So Chris, as you well know, we come up with service levels based on service-based pricing first, and then work with you on what would hardware be to deliver those services versus designing hardware and figuring out what the price is. Correct?
That's correct. We actually will go over the service levels in a few minutes, but the idea is that you're looking at what does the customer or what do you as a customer want to do? Forget about what kind of hardware is in there. Forget about what type of connectivity. Just what do you want to accomplish? What workloads do you have? And how do you want to deliver services to your end customers? And then you let NetApp and Insight handle the problem of the hardware.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's a little bit backwards thinking for those who designed hardware based on a solution, got a price, and either sold it to you or sometimes partitioned it off. Where at first it's like, okay, I have this. It's a scary thought. I don't know what the hardware is as I'm building these services, and I think what we're going to demonstrate is once we work with the NetApp team and Chris, you're going to be very comfortable with how the service will be delivered. So. One more point about the solution that NetApp has, again, at Insight, we've got lots of partners. Clearly, NetApp is leading this as a service market, especially with data management. And there's a couple of clear reasons why. One, there is no other storage company that can do what NetApp does. And so we're going to talk about Keystone. And if you look at the screen, we talk about private cloud. Keystone is something that will end up in your data center delivering services. If you don't want your data center and you're trying to get out of your data center, we can put it in another data center, let's say Equinix or something like that. However, NetApp also has services that are first-party cloud services, which if you're wondering what should I run in my data center, you might want to just look at the big cloud guys. Azure, Microsoft Azure, calls it Azure NetApp Files. You don't buy it from NetApp, you buy it from Microsoft. Certainly Insight will help you do that. The Amazon service is recently announced, and that's another first-party service as well as Google. So I can go and get the same service levels we're going to talk about on Keystone or public cloud. Spoiler alert, they're significantly more expensive in public cloud than they are in Keystone. But we're going to help you figure out where those workloads go. And then, we don't have time today to get into all the details of other things NetApp can do in the public cloud with Cloud ONTAP aligning to your Keystone environment, or Spot if you have a bunch of workloads in your public cloud. So Chris, I think it'd be awesome if you would kind of go through and describe the different service levels that Keystone includes in the program.
Absolutely. So if you take a look at what the service catalog is in Keystone Flex subscription, it's really designed around the NetApp core product teams, right? You're going to have the file and block system, which is based around your NetApp's traditional FAS, all-flash FAS systems, but think of it more of the ONTAP-based systems. And you very easily can provide those services, and we'll go over the actual service levels in a second. And of course, we have the object system. If you have a customer that is looking for S3 and they need storage grid, then object is very much available to them. And of course, then we have our block-only system, which is actually built on NetApp's E-Series. And that is going to be your entire portfolio. So we break the entire catalog up into different performance service levels. We actually are going to start off with the file and block. This is basically what I tell people is slow, medium, and oh my Lord, this is fast, and archive, right? So you have your value service level. That's where you actually put your backups. And, it's going to be, cheap and deep. It's going to be where you put, you have bulk storage, or you could refer that to as your big book of everything where you put stuff. Then you have your standard service levels. Standard service levels are built more along your lines of your unstructured data. Maybe you have file shares, CIF shares, NFS, or some low performance application servers, web front end servers. And it's important to understand that you are actually looking at things with a traditional IOPS per terabyte type of relationship. So the standard service level will max out at about 512 IOPS per terabyte. Now, it's important that you understand that, because if you actually have a 2 terabyte volume, you're looking at 1,000 IOPS, right? The next service level is our premium service level. And that's going to be maxing out at about 4,000 IOPS per terabyte. And your, oh my Lord, this is fast, extreme service level, and that's going to be at 12,000 IOPS per terabyte. Now, it's also important to understand that this is going to be at 4K block size, right? Little, so you know that those are going to be really, really high performance workloads. And of course, your latencies, where the extreme is going to be under a millisecond, premium is going to be under 2 milliseconds. And of course, standard, it shows 17 milliseconds, but that's normally because of what the protocols are supporting. Now, you can actually do these service levels and support any type of protocol that you want. Do you need CIFS? Do you need NFS, iSCSI, Fiber Channel, or S3 Object? All of those will be available on the File and Block platform. Okay. Now, when you look at the object storage level, that's going to be built on Storage Grid. That's your media repositories. Maybe you do you have an S3 native application, and that is actually going to be built on S3. But if you need if you just need very, very simple block level storage, Fiber Channel or iSCSI, and E-Series is your product of choice, then you're going to be able to use the block. And that's going to be 5,000 IOPS for extreme. It's going to be, for premium, is 4,000 IOPS per terabyte. And of course, that standard is going to be for backups, right? That's going to be your larger big book of everything type of service. Now, you can actually subscribe to these services anywhere between 1 year and 5 years in your terms. Now, there are 2 ways to also consume this particular service level. You can have it be fully operated. Insight can actually be your operator of choice. You can actually have them give you this as a complete turnkey solution. But if you actually, as a customer, say, well, wait a second, I want to run my storage the way I've always been able to run it. I want to be able to get into the keyboard. I want to create the different configurations. I want to do the different things that I need to do. Then that's fine too. This is perfectly consumable on a customer operated type of environment. So the idea is choice and flexibility. Whatever it is that you need for choice and whatever you need for flexibility, it's all going to be available as part of your service catalog.
Here's the service levels that NetApp has summarized, and here's the pricing. Now, many people are like, pricing for storage before they negotiate what my budget is? That is a new world. That's available on cloud. That's available on NetApp's website, Keystone pricing, and you'll see what the pricing is. So this is, within 1% of what that is. Your price may be lower if you choose a longer term or pay monthly, or pay annually, whatever. So most people are lower than this, but this is the highest you'd be. And if you compare this with anybody else's pricing that you've seen or that you're thinking about or that was published, et cetera, you're going to see it's very competitive. So this is the end of the discussion of why would you talk to anybody else but NetApp for an as a service model. And we're really focused on the data. But we talked a little bit, Chris, about, okay, so now hopefully people understand that I've got things that I thought of on flash, that's premium. I put them in the premium line for the quantity. Backup targets, I put them in the value line. I got a couple of extreme things, I put them in the extreme line. So now I have a configuration, and really that's where we come and bring that configuration to you, and we start building, so we've architected based on servicing, and then we sit down with your team and the teams that designed this and go through and build out the hardware. Do you want to cover briefly what that process is?
Sure. Thanks, Ken. What's going to happen is the customer is going to bring us and and Kent and his team are going to bring us what the actual proposal is. We need XYZ of extreme. We need ABC of premium. We need so much of standard, right? Those are one of the questions that you're going to need. What service levels are there and how much do you need? We're actually going to then take that and bring it into our proprietary system. And we're actually going to be able to tell you what actual platform is going to be appropriate to be able to guarantee those service levels out to the end customer. And when I say the end customer, I'm not really talking about the IT department. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the business user out at the end. It may be the CFO. It may be the engineering department of a various company. But we need to be able to guarantee that right to use at a particular service level. So we're going to be able to build a hardware configuration that will meet those service levels. Now, here's the important piece. Because we are actually building the configuration from a service level perspective, there is no difference in charge for the various different components that need to be able to be put in place. Do you need fiber channel? Do you need Ethernet? Do you need 100 gig Ethernet? Do you need S3? Doesn't matter. Those are all included as part of the service to be able to give you that connectivity. And we're going to work with your account teams, with the end customer engineers, as well as the different people inside of NetApp to build that configuration as a team to be able to guarantee those service levels to the customer. It's a very simple thing. It's very collaborative, and we work together from the end customer all the way to the back end performance engineering team to ensure that we can always meet or exceed our customers' expectations.
It is an awesome working relationship, and one of the questions that usually comes up is this going to go in the cloud? Is it going to go in my data center? It goes wherever you want. It could go in your data center. We are working on some where it's going to go on ships. It can go in a hosted data center. You'll know exactly what's coming, so it's an awesome solution. So Chris, we worked together with a client. We've actually been working with this client for about a year and a half. It's interesting because they were one of those that is using Keystone as a bridge to cloud. So they're very public about they have an absolute 100% public cloud strategy. And as a result, about a year and a half ago, they called up and said, well, I guess we can't buy NetApp anymore because that would be a CapEx spend, and that goes against a cloud strategy. So instead of saying, oh, gee, we can't work with you anymore, we actually sat down and said, well, what will you do, and what's the cloud strategy? Well, the cloud strategy could take anywhere from, I don't think anybody's thinking less than 2 or 3 or 4 years, as we know, to 10 years to move significant parts of what ends up to be 5,200 workloads into public cloud. So what they've done is they've adopted Keystone. Now, where they started was NetApp is my provider of all my file services. I have a different provider that for them was providing block services. I have somebody else that provides compute for me, et cetera. And so one of the things we did was we helped them understand how we can do this with file services. They got used to the OpEx model, how it aligned perfectly with their cloud strategy. If they wanted to pick it up and move it to cloud 6 months from now or 6 years from now, that was not a big problem. At that point, they said, well, I don't know why I have this other vendor for my block strategy. I need to start putting that on there. They're in 4th or 5th data center they're rolling out with this. It solves all their problems and aligns completely to their cloud strategy. So, and again, just like Chris described, every time they said, this is the environment, this is what I need, we sit down with the joint teams, Chris's team, et cetera, put together the solution, get it out to them, get it implemented, and start supporting it.
And Kent, one of the greatest things about this particular customer is they actually looked like they were going to do their migration to the cloud. And we were actually able to put together a proposal that was 1 year long, right? Their entire subscription is 1 year long. And they need to renew the subscription at the end of the year. That will be absolutely fine. But the idea was, why buy something that you need to amortize out over 5 years when you don't actually know how long you're going to need it? So use something that you can actually do a little shorter or give you that flexibility on your terms on exactly what you need to do.
Awesome example, because basically the CFO said, well, I don't want a long-term contract because nobody knows. And even though the people that knew said it won't go for 2 or 3 or 4 years based on our strategy, he just liked the fact that I can just sign up now for a year and just keep going essentially month to month until something happens. And so it fit the CFO, it fit the CEO, it fit the CIO. It's a perfect strategy. And again, we're seeing them doing it over and over. It just becomes a standard because, and we've actually seen them. We're going to help them with their compute, which we'll touch base on with their block. But put it on Keystone has become one of those things. And this is a large, sophisticated organization. Put it on Keystone has become very easy for them to do. But we can segue a little bit into how's this managed. I think Chris touched on this before. So we're talking about Keystone, and with every Keystone subscription, we always include Insight's essential services, which means we're going to do the billing, we're going to do the 24/7, you're going to have a customer success engineer, optimization services, etc. By the way, if you bought some NetApp Azure files or NetApp services and we were your cloud services provider, CSP, same level of services. If you ended up saying, I need compute from, say, Cisco, and I use Cisco Plus, which kind of looks like Keystone for compute, same essential services. And then as Chris said, you can then say, well, that's awesome. And in this case, I'm using all my APIs and management and operations the same way. If you want to offload those to us, we offer an array or a menu of services that you can put together. Then, as a conclusion, what we've seen over the last year at Insight is Keystone was awesome. We were into dozens and dozens and dozens. And Chris, I think we're in over 50 clients today going in and looking at this. But all of a sudden, they're like, okay, this is an awesome solution. Clearly, nobody can do data management like NetApp can with Keystone. What are you going to do for my compute? How can I tie this into my cloud? How can I tie this to my data protection, et cetera? And that's really where Insight is helping you wrap all those services around. So just in conclusion, one of the things we saw earlier this year, and you saw at Cisco Live, which was their equivalent of the Insight conference, was the introduction of what's called Cisco Plus. This is the other half of a FlexPod, if you would. So Cisco Plus, generally speaking, looks just kind of in many ways like Keystone. Chris described service levels in terabytes. In Cisco, it is UCS server blades and UCS C servers, et cetera. There are going to be network switches and things like that included very shortly. They asked partners to deliver it, partners to build it into solutions. So immediately we had, a dozen plus opportunities to take Cisco Plus, marry it with Keystone, and essentially deliver FlexPod as a service. So, building on a more and more complete solution. So, Chris, I don't know if you have any other questions. One of the things that being respectful of their time, we'll try to tie this up. Hopefully, you'll get a copy of this content. It'll get posted in different ways. If you want to, you can actually go and say what we were saying a year ago with the NetApp PM for that, Sunitha Rao. We did this video. Hundreds of people watched it live. So that's available on a YouTube link. If you don't know who to contact at either NetApp or at Insight, you can actually just send an email to insightforkeystone@insight.com. If you choose, you can send it to insightforkeystone@netapp.com and get a response back. But I think that the questions that clients watching this might ask is, are you trying to figure out how to refresh old technology with new technology? We're seeing that many people with older infrastructure are concerned about security issues, et cetera. Does it make sense to look at Keystone as getting onto the latest technology as a service, which may be actually about the same cost as renewing support and doing things like that? And then we talked a little bit about how it can bridge cloud strategies, et cetera. So with that, we'll tie it up. Chris, any final comments? We really appreciate the partnership and working relationship, and I think clients are benefiting.
Yeah, and I would say that when you're working with Insight, you're in really, really good hands because Insight really knows how to do it. And Kent, I've appreciated our partnership as you and I have been working together over the last year and a half on this particular program. It's made it very, very easy to do, and I feel very confident that we will continue to see great success.
Awesome. We thank you as well. So with that, we'll let everybody move on to the next part of their day.